Yeah.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, who's this? I don't know, man. Hey.
Are we all ready? Good evening, everybody. Welcome you to the regular city council meeting for February the 20th. I'd like to ask everybody in the audience that can to stand as we start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments? Hearing none, do we have citizen participation? As I call your name, if you would come up to the podium and identify yourself with folks at home. Oh, okay. Lisa Smith, good to see you. Welcome. Good to see you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Robinson and members of the City Council. I am Lisa Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Bowie Business Innovation Center, the business accelerator and collaborative workspace that is headquartered at Bowie State University. It's a project designed to assist both technology companies and government contractors. And we now have a second location for our graduate clients at Ken Hill Center in Bowie. I appreciate having a moment this evening just to kind of say a couple quick things. First and foremost, I want to thank the Mayor and Council for their continuing support of the Bowie BIC program, because Bowie BIC needs continuing support from the city. That support is essential to us and our ability to generate impact for the city. Second, I would like to share some quick highlights from 2017. There is a one-pager in your materials there that kind of gives you some quick factoids about what we've been up to. In July of 2017, we celebrated our 5th anniversary, and over the last 5 years, we have grown into the largest concentration of business scale-up resources in Bowie and in Prince George's County. That the numbers really kind of tell our story. In 2017, we worked with a record number of entrepreneurs. 1,220 entrepreneurs participated in our counseling, training, business advisory services, and networking events. And we estimate that 40% of those are Bowie-based entrepreneurs. The 12 clients in our core 36-month business accelerator program for technology companies and government contractors and our graduates report that in 2017 their businesses generated 162 jobs and $9.1 million in revenues. Additional comments about 2017, as many of you know, with the city's support, we launched Bowie BIC's transition office space, BIC Next, at Ken Hill Center, which is for the graduates of our accelerator program. And as of July 2017, we have 2 of our graduates that are operating at BIC Next. The Maryland Women's Business Center named Bowie BIC client Keisha Dempsey, who's the founder of Trinity Empowerment, the region's top woman veteran entrepreneur in 2017. Trinity is a systems engineering and firm serving the intelligence community. We also launched a series of information security tech meetups at TJ Elliott's in the fall, and we will build on the success of that in 2018. In November, we established the Bowie BIC Trailblazer Award and presented the very first award to Dr. Aminta Bro, who is the first female president of Bowie State University. We introduced Dr. Bro to the Bowie business community at a luncheon for about 120 business leaders at Woodmore Country Club in November. And in December, we co-sponsored the first tech breakfast pitch event for entrepreneurs at Bowie State University, and it attracted 60 entrepreneurs. As we look ahead to 2018 and our initiatives, I want to be sure that I mention that we are part of a TEDCO-funded pilot project called QUORUM, which connects entrepreneurs to supply chain opportunities with major corporates. And Northrop Grumman is going to be the first corporate to participate in our pilot. Our Bowie BIC's partners in this pilot include the University of Maryland College Park, Prince George's County Council, and Incubate Consulting. We've created an entrepreneur in residence program at Bowie BIC for our technology entrepreneurs, and we were able to do this through a Maryland TEDCO grant. And I'm really happy to announce that the 3rd annual Dolphin Tank Practice Pitch event will be in Bowie in May. We are very excited to be able to do that again and to provide a focal point for our entrepreneurs and their interest in getting sharper skills to attract investment. Finally, we are launching an 8A Accelerator initiative with mentoring and workshops to ensure the success of the 8A businesses in Bowie and to maximize the impact and growth of the high-wage jobs that are associated with these government contractors. I want to thank you for your attention and tell you that we do understand that you have tough budget choices each year, and we appreciate the city's support for Bowie-Vic. We hope that you will be able to fund our budget requests so that we can continue to generate growth and impact in the city. Thank you.
Well, thank you, ma'am, and thank you and your team for what you're doing up there. You know, it's a constant sort of pride to see you bring those new, young, and eager and enthusiastic young entrepreneurs in there and interact them with, or have them interact with skilled professionals and with people in the business community, and just to watch them grow and flourish, and then watch them come back and bring the next group along, so you're doing a fine job.
Thank you. And these types of projects, as we've often said, it takes a village, and we are so fortunate to have the types of partners that we have in the city and in the region to help us make all of these things happen. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you. Linda, and I apologize, your handwriting is as good as mine. Your last name is Lena?
Lynn.
Oh, okay. Oh, Lynn. Oh, okay. Now I can see it. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Appreciate the time. I have two things related to animal control I wanted to bring up. We've had in our community for about a year or more now issues with folks walking their dogs without leashes, one, and two, letting their dogs defecate on community property and not cleaning it up. And the second issue is one particular neighbor in our community who has fed his cats outside to the point where they're now breeding and roaming around the neighborhood. And I brought this to the attention of animal control about probably less than a year ago, and basically was chastised and told that I needed to, that they do a great job, which I never questioned that they were doing a great job, but basically I needed to report it every time I saw it and come in, and they can only do something if they see it, or I would have to fill out an affidavit. I'm more than happy to fill out an affidavit, but I would hope that they would be proactive, and if I said every day people are out here walking their dogs either without a leash, and somebody was recently attacked by a dog over in Heather Hills, and the owner ran away and refused to identify themselves. If I was telling them about an issue that I'm actually witnessing, that they would try to be proactive and actually come out in the community and patrol or do something like that, because it's literally every day. So what I'd like to know is what's the best way to get this addressed, because none of us would defecate on the ground and leave it there.
All right, do me a favor, leave your name and a phone number with the city manager, and we'll have someone reach out to you, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
That's all the people that have signed up to speak. I'm sorry?
I didn't make it in time to.
All right, come on.
Good evening. Since most of you seem to have forgotten, definition of represent means that you are there to represent the community and not your own interests and not the interests of developers and big businesses. I would like to put it on record that I am absolutely disgusted and disheartened by Ms. Palangin's decision to run again for District 2. I understand that she is well within her right to do so, but I also think that a reminder of the history of the last 2 to 3 years of what has occurred in this city is necessary. In 2015, District 2 chose Diane Palangin to represent them on the City Council, to represent their wishes and what was going to be for the best interest of the already residing constituents of Bowie, Maryland, except she failed to do just that, as many of you have with your votes on Melford and your votes on Marketplace. District 2, Diane Palangin does not represent you anymore. In 2015, former developer, as her resume does state, Diane Palangin runs on an unauthorized slate that was not, she did not receive permission, express permission from all the candidates, so this is an unauthorized slate. So if we're going to talk about sticking to the rules, and I had an arrest threatened on me, this was not authorized, funded by developers, lobbyists, and major commercial residential realtors, wins her election to represent District 2 in Bowie, Maryland. In 2016, an unheard of community movement started building. Over 1,000 residents signed the No Marketplace Apartments petition, which many of you completely ignored. Hundreds of No Marketplace Apartments signs pop up around District 2. Hundreds of residents came here testifying against the residential development at Marketplace in Melford, speaking to you and pleading with you, explaining about the adverse impact it is going to have on their homes, on their property values, on their future, on the future of their children, and you ignored them. And then in early 2017, despite the adverse impact it would have on her constituents and her neighbors, Diane Palangin sided with the developers, their money and their votes, and she voted in favor of residential development at not only Melford, but Marketplace. Her votes gives Berman Enterprise and St. John's Properties permission to break Bowie City Code with the traffic and residential density allowances set up for Bowie residents. Bowie Citizens for Accountable Government was born last year. And during our second try, over 3,000 Bowie residents signed the petition telling Diane Palangin that she deserves to be removed from her position for not listening to her constituents. In December 2017, 70% of District 2 voted to recall Diane Palangin in a clear margin. It was a decisive victory, and every one of you up there knows it. Present day, Diane Palangin continues to prove that she is out of touch with her constituents, that she ignores their wishes, and she files again to run for office in the vacancy in District 2. And now we have signs put up alongside St. John's Property Developers. Diane Palangin does not represent the citizens of Bowie. She is part of a voting bloc that you, Mayor Robinson, are part of that represents only the interests of developers. And I'll be darned if this was not put up, because she knows that the vote can be split, and because she has the voting bloc that's already in there, she's hoping that the vote will be split 3 ways among the major candidates, and she will be able to slide back into this position against the wishes of the majority of the constituents who voted in December. On Monday, March 12th, I ask that you vote for the only candidate that has been endorsed by Bowie Citizens for Accountable Government.
Now you're getting, I'm sorry, but now you're getting into an overtly political thing, and this is a business meeting, so.
This is citizens participation. I'm a citizen.
It is citizen participation. It is not a political meeting.
And where does it say the definition of what I'm allowed to speak about at this meeting?
Look, I think I've gone a long way in listening to your political diatribe here. You know, you have a right to speak.
Yes, I do have a right to speak. I have 5 minutes to speak, and there is nowhere, please point to where it says the contents of what I may speak about at this podium.
I'm telling you, this is, you're down on the border of
Mayor
political
Robinson,
action.
Bowie Citizens for Accountable Government represents over 3,000 constituents in District 2. Please tell me where it says in the Bowie City Charter what the contents of citizen participation may contain. I have just as every right as everyone here to represent.
Finish up your comment.
So you're making the habit of interrupting constituents now?
Would you finish up your comment, please?
Thank you for the permission to speak, Mayor Robinson. I greatly appreciate it. I was almost finished. It's astonishing, honestly. I ask that on March 12th, Monday, you vote for Dufour Wolfley, because we are hoping to actually represent the constituents and not the interests of the developers. And I appreciate you allowing me to finish my speech.
Thank you, ma'am. City manager's comments. Have a report.
Mr. Mayor, I think earlier I mentioned...
Wait a minute, excuse me, I forgot it. I skipped over boards and committees. Mr. Marcos?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Curtis Bowers to the Economic Development Committee.
Second.
Moved and second by Dr. Trout. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Would you join us up here, sir? Good evening to you. Why don't you come on up front? I'm going to swear you in and get you started on a 14-year career. I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand after I say aye, if you would follow with your name. I
Curtis Reed Bowers,
do swear or affirm
do swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland
and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of
execute the office of
regular member of the Economic Development Committee
regular member of the Economic Development Committee,
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
according to the Constitution and laws of the state.
Congratulations, sir. A little present for you, if you want to say hi to everybody.
Hello, Mr. Bowers. Congratulations.
Thank you for volunteering.
Welcome aboard.
Mr. Chuck. Any family members here?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for sharing it with us. We'll get back to it.
That's my pet. Oh, okay. This is Sonia Joe.
Thank you very much.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you for sharing.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, as I mentioned to you earlier, we just completed the first review of the budget for FY 2019 within the staff review, and finance team and other members of the staff are busily working to get the final document prepared for the presentation to the City Council in April. Also, we have really good news. If you look to the left here, the guy in the blue suit, Daniel Mears, is our new Assistant City Manager. So I'd like to
Welcome.
introduce him. So please take an opportunity to meet this young fellow, and he's a very accomplished former city manager in La Plata, and he's going to do a great job here, and he's learning Bowie heavily right now, leading from the fire hose. Thank you, sir.
Well, welcome aboard, sir.
Welcome aboard. Thank you.
Okay, council, you have consent agenda items A through F. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Move. You do a second? Second. Courtney Glass. Is there any question on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Old business approval ordinance 0118, amending the adopted budget.
Thank you, Al. Good evening, council and mayor. Thank you for the opportunity of bringing to your attention ordinance 118. The items listed in the ordinance are things that staff has brought to you over the year based on your recommendations and requests. We've listed a few of these items. They touch all funds, and we ask for your approval of this supplemental budget ordinance. If you have any particular questions about any particular item, I would be more than happy to discuss it.
Okay. Does anyone sign up to speak on this?
No, sir.
Okay, the public hearing has been completed. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, real quick. I think I've said this before, but it'll be worth saying again. For the end of the fiscal year 17, we were anticipating going in some projected shortfalls, and we came away, I understand, with a budget that was in the black at the end of fiscal 17. That's correct, Mr. Matthews?
That's correct.
Wonderful. Can you remind me offhand, were there any particular things that helped achieve that? Because there was a gap between what we anticipated and what ended up happening, obviously in our favor, and we're very pleased. But
Yes,
was there
it
anything
was-
that stood out to you?
Yes, just basically one windfall, the income tax calculation from the state that we received. Due to their estimate, it allowed local municipalities to receive income tax earnings earlier, so they were recorded in 17 as opposed to being recorded in 18. So it
Gotcha.
was just a one-time accounting situation that allowed the state to record that revenue earlier.
Okay. I saw we had a number of projects come in under budget as well, but it sounds like our big stroke of luck was an income tax calculation then.
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
As you know, the city is using the fund balance in order to balance the budget. We were projecting earlier on that that'd be about $5 million. We're just getting information from staff, so I have not yet projected what that would be. I'm quite sure that we're going to be using close to that amount as revenues are lagging behind expenditures as planned.
Okay. So in fiscal 18, we're potentially looking at a shortfall and using some.
Well, I wouldn't look at it as a shortfall, sir. I would just say that we have a policy to fund the general fund by using the fund balance.
My point simply being that in fiscal 18, it looks like we won't be able to replicate what occurred in fiscal 17.
Not as far as receiving any
Okay.
additional income tax revenue, yes.
Gotcha. That's helpful. Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff? All right, do you have a recommendation to approve ordinance 0118? Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Marcos and second by Ms. Glass. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. New business, approval resolution R718, Community Block Grant Program.
Mr. Bucks, please.
Thank
Welcome,
you.
sir.
Good evening. The city became an entitlement community with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, as you know, in 2003. As an entitlement community, we must develop a 5-year strategic plan, which is commonly referred to as the consolidated plan, related to housing and community development. The plan must be developed with significant community participation. To date, we have successfully developed and implemented 3 of these 5-year plans, and now we must develop another one. We are in the final year of the FY14, FY18 plan, and are working on the FY19 and 23 plan. Consistent with HUD's regulatory requirements related to certain statutes in the Community Development Block Grant Program, we must have an adopted community participation plan for the development of the 5-year consolidated plan. Before you tonight, the consolidated plan drafted that you have as an attachment to the city manager's memo that we have developed to illustrate how we propose to talk to the public and get and incorporate their comments and ideas from all sectors of the community into the plan. An example are we're obviously doing a number of required public hearings, that we have a number of public meetings, we have a number of public notices that are distributed, including flyers like the ones you might have seen here, which state, let your voice be heard in planning Bowie's future, and it lists all of the meetings and public hearings that we plan to have over the next several months. The plan must be delivered finally to HUD by May 15th. We also sent out, and you probably see some of the residents in your districts doing this, and you might have received one. We have a survey that was mailed or distributed to over 7,000 residents within the community, and then also distributed to the chamber as well as all the HOAs and churches within the community. We're asking them to return this by February 28th. The plan you have before you is what we put together to demonstrate to HUD that we do have a plan that we can follow to get citizen participation and input for this 5-year strategy. And so we ask you tonight to adopt the plan, which HUD will recognize as our statement of public outreach for the 5-year strategic or consolidated plan. With that, I thank you and ask any questions you might have related to the plan itself.
Anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
Your public hearing. Any questions of staff? Hearing none.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I apologize.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was slow on the draw. Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight, Mr. Buggs. Just as a broad overview for the 2019 to 2023, what are the areas that, and I mean, you haven't obviously gotten the survey results yet, but I know that you've been doing this for a while. What are the areas of particular need that you've seen over time and that you anticipate will probably come up again in the surveys that we're putting out?
I will also like to say, in answering your question, that we've also included as a part of this survey a link to a survey for the police department. So part of this overall survey is in addition to, there are like 2 surveys going on at the same time. But overall, most of the focus that we've had and attention that I get comes from needs of seniors within the community. And as you know, over the past few years, there have been a number of issues related to both housing, income, their ability to pay their bills. Our senior center, you know, is bursting at the seams, so we always get questions about additional facilities and ways that we can engage seniors, and we're actually adding to that population. So this is a nationwide issue, but we get it rather intensely because of the size of our senior population and the growth of our senior population. All of this was stated in the analysis that was done both on the housing and the demographic analysis from 5 years ago, that these issues were coming. The other is just primarily related to the cost of housing and cost of living related to certain populations. The city's demographics are changing, and with those changes come a number of requests and requirements, both from seniors who are confronting issues related to medical costs and housing costs and those things, but others whose incomes are not keeping pace. And as a result, it is creating a requirement almost that certain programs, even some social initiatives or things that have not traditionally been offered in the city, might have to be considered. So we'll just wait and see to what extent those things are, you know, pronounced in the survey that we get back.
Gotcha. In the data that you sent us, you had the difference in the need a few years ago versus today regarding seniors. It was really pronounced. That kind of took me by surprise, but I appreciate the presentation. Thank you, and I'll be curious to see the results of the surveys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Bucks, for coming out this evening and preparing the statement for us. I do have a question. Wanted to piggyback slightly off of Councilmember Estev's question. Where would you say the city of Bowie is currently with meeting its need for senior housing? You know, I oftentimes we are approached here by developers for single-family housing, multifamily, mixed-use projects and all, but senior housing itself, just plain and simple, nothing more, 55 and older.
Yeah, I guess there are a couple of things that are coming. One is some new construction that is proposed will add significant number of units of senior housing that I think will be very helpful. What is going to be interesting is to see to what extent that satisfies all strata of the senior population, the demographic strata, especially as it relates to income. So what we need to do in addition to some of the projects that I see being developed is, one of the things that we're doing is looking to see how we can work with some additional funds, either federal or other, to incentivize some additional housing for seniors at lower income levels. Because their income is not increasing and all their expenses are. Exactly. And I would say 90% of what we're getting from them relates to that conundrum that they find themselves in. So in other jurisdictions, I mean, this is really something that the county needs to take on because of the cost of constructing this kind of property. Is they have greater funding that can support and incentivize that. As a matter of fact, the county, as you know, has a $700,000 contract with Enterprise and 5 other entities to develop the first ever comprehensive housing study for the county. We will be impacted by that. So all municipalities, they have the consulting firm supposed to be coming to talk specifically to all municipalities about what their needs and what their requirements are of the study. And I encourage you when they come talk to the city of Bowie to make senior housing one of the principal things that you do.
Please do.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bucks. Thank you for your answer. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Buggs, do you know the folks that are coming in to talk to the municipalities, do you know if they're talking to all of the 27 mayors individually? Are they talking collectively? Are they going to make a presentation to the Prince George's County Municipal Association? Do you have any background on
Yes, they were supposed to be talking to each one individually. We recommended that because of the diverse interests and population and ages and incomes and other things of each municipality. So we encourage them to talk to each municipality individually so they can answer the questions, get some insight from each municipality about what their specific requirements are. So I'm on the advisory board for the counties for this study. I will look into it more deeply and provide you with a more concrete response to your question.
Okay, thank you. Recommendation for approval of resolution R718. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gardner. Second by Mr. Marcus. Any question on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Bowie Ice Arena design presentations. City Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, City Council. We've had a bit of a miscue from the last meeting, and our architects aren't here. However, our project manager team, led by Mr. Edwin Newman from Hill International, is here, and they will proceed with the update. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
I want to see our image up here, but here we go. We're burning it. Good evening. My name is Ed Newman. I'm with Hill International. Hill serves as the city's consultant project manager for the Ice Arena project. It's our role to represent and protect the city's interests throughout the course of the project and work to promote the on-time, within-budget, high-quality completion of the project. So I want to update you as to where we stand right now with the project. So we've reached our first checkpoint for design, which is called schematic design. We're about 15% done the design. We have a basic site layout and a basic building footprint and floor plan. So we've sent the present design through the city's project management team for review and comment. We're working to incorporate their comments into the next iteration of the design. So I'll walk you through kind of where we stand in the process right now. So this slide here kind of shows where we are with the schedule. As I mentioned, the schematic design's been in for the city's review since early January. Got plenty of comments back from the staff. The architect is working to incorporate those comments now. We have a whole series of meetings coming up in the near future to get detailed input from the city's current ice arena operations staff to make sure their wants and desires are built into the design. Here's our site plan. To orient you, Route 50, which runs east and west, is the bottom of the page. So that's south. Church Road running north and south is on the west side of the site. What you see is the building footprint in the lower left-hand corner, which is the southwest end of the site. We learned during the site planning process, we did some surveying, that we have wetlands to contend with at the kind of the midpoint of the site at the north end, as well as a stream buffer. So we had to adjust the site design to avoid those constraints. So what we have shown here is the building footprint showing the 2 sheets of ice, each NHL sized. We have an entry drive coming off of Church Road. We have 250 paved parking spaces. And as part of the planning for the future and trying to be smart about our design, we have laid the site out to accommodate, if the city does decide in the future to add the 5 courts or some expansion of the program to accommodate that, we can build on the east side where parking lot number 2 is shown right now, and have that all be part of one building with adequate parking. Here's a larger blow-up of the site, same configuration. We have a bus drop-off in front with the circulation. I mentioned we have the possibility to expand eastward at parking lot 2. We're also looking at, as one of our design options, to provide some overflow parking where number 7 is shown for events that have more than 250 parking spaces demanded. Here's a rendering looking from Church Road south towards the building. It's a big box, fairly simple design. We try to make it a bit interesting and inviting and welcoming in the front. You'll see that in a future slide, which I'll show in a second. Here's the floor plan. Unfortunately, I don't have a pointer to help orient you, but the building is about 77,500 square feet, which means that it's very efficient. We have a 92% layout efficiency, which means that we are minimizing the square footage and maximizing the program. So we've got minimal circulation space, once again, to make the building as efficient and cost-effective as we can. We have a very well laid out, properly sized lobby and skate changing area. At the top of the page, right below the arrow, is where the admin and control function is. We have a welcome desk, as well as admin offices for the staff. Wish I had a pointer, but we have a concession stand with cafe seating right in the center between the two rinks at the top of the slide, the north end. We have a pro shop right adjacent to that. At the very upper right hand, we have 2 community rooms with public toilets right off of that corridor. We have 2 ice rinks. We're showing on the note there, one with 700 seats and one with 100 seats. We're actually working right now with the design team to try to maximize the seating in one to get close to 1,000 seats for larger tournaments. In the central core, we have 10 team locker rooms and 2 official locker rooms. At the very bottom of the page or of the slide is where we have our mechanical support spaces, our ice making plant, and such. So here are some elevations. The top is what you would see from the front of the building, looking at the entry. What's shown on the second one down is looking from the west. The third one down, where it says Booyah Arena, that is looking from the east, from Church Road at the building. The bottom elevation, which you would see from Route 50 from the south. It's a very simple design. It's a big box, a pre-engineered metal building, very cost-effective structure. We have tried to make it a little interesting with some curtain walls, some translucent panels to get some light into the building. So those are our only, if you will, aesthetic features on the exterior. Here's a shot of the lobby. The idea here is to make this welcoming, warm, inviting. We have some wood paneling you see on the ceiling, some wood accents for some of the casework. But once again, to make this an interesting space to welcome folks in and a nice welcoming environment for visitors. Here's a rendering of one of the ice rinks. As I mentioned, we're looking at how we can possibly expand and get more seating beyond 700 to close to 1,000 in number 1. This is an NHL-sized rink. Similarly, ice rink number 2 is 100 seats. Same basic concept. I want to talk to you about how we are managing costs on behalf of the city. This is a very thorough, detailed, involved process. Our objectives are to finish the job within $25 million that the city has budgeted in your capital improvement program. And our role as your project manager is to maximize value to get you the best facility we can given those constraints of the budget. So it's a bit of a challenge. Our job is to work with the city's project management team, the designer, to try to strike a balance between several objectives that are oftentimes at odds with each other. We have to have a program that meets the needs of the community, that has the right spaces, the right amenities, the right features to support the community's needs, as well as the user groups. We're trying to maximize functionality. We want to make it easy and efficient and cost-effective to operate and maintain. We have to balance the initial cost of the building versus life cycle costs, looking at the cost of utilities to operate, the cost of power, the cost of water, looking at life cycle replacement costs for different systems, mechanical systems. So we're trying to find the right balance there to make sure we meet those objectives to the best of our ability. We have to conform to regulatory and permitting guidelines from Prince George's County, from the city's own standards, from Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission to WSSC, for example. Make sure we comply with all the statutory requirements that we have to abide by. And then per the city's adopted resolution, we have to strive to achieve a minimum of LEED Silver through the U.S. Green Building Council. So our $25 million budget has basically four major elements. And I'll run through these in order. The first is the cost of permits, approvals, and inspections. These are fees you may have to pay to permitting entities. It's the cost of third-party plan review for building code compliance. It's the cost of special inspections that are mandated by the building code for critical structures that we're constructing. The hard costs, the cost of construction, self-explanatory. Your site costs are your cost of excavation and grading, stormwater management, utilities, water, sewer, paving, parking lots, sidewalk. The building, of course, is the cost of the structure and its interiors itself. Furniture, fixtures, equipment, FF&E is anything in the building that's loose. This is tables and chairs, TV monitors, the scoreboard, let's say the hockey goals. And then finally, we have a fairly substantial contingency at this point in the design to account for things that we know we don't know or things that we know we don't know. And one obvious one is we have to account for the fact we're only 50% through design, so we have an allowance for what's called design completion to get to 100% as we get more detail into the building. Escalation is the cost of inflation. That's an allowance for cost increases in the future based upon inflation. We see the market heating up here locally. There's lots of work for contractors to bid, and that's going to give us upward pricing pressure. So we have an allowance to account for that future escalation. Unforeseen conditions. Our site has a high groundwater table. We have some questionable soil, so we're going to do more geotechnical investigations in the next design checkpoint, design development, to gain more information. But we have an allowance in our budget for that type of condition. Required off-site work. We have to bring in water down Church Road. We'll probably have to do some improvements to Church Road, maybe a dedicated left turn lane into the site, maybe a deceleration lane and an acceleration lane, and then out of the driveway. So we have an allowance for that in our budget. And then the wetlands impacts, we have to, as I mentioned, we've made some adjustments to the layout to accommodate that, which may have some cost impacts for us. So we have an allowance or contingency to handle these things that are presently unknowns. So our cost control process, we meet with the city's project management team every 2 or 3 weeks traditionally, and the budget is always reviewed. We always have an update as to where we stand versus the budget. It's a constant source of a focus and attention for us. We're managing value continuously throughout the entire process. So what we do is at each design checkpoint, we have a detailed cost estimate done that is then reviewed, critiqued, reconciled among the project teams. So we've done that at 15% of schematic design is where we are right now. Our next checkpoint is design development, which is about a 35% design, which will have much more detail in terms of building systems, the MEP systems, the ice plant. We'll have 2 more checkpoints at construction documents 1 and 2 at 65 and 95. So once again, it's a comprehensive look at the construction costs, and we make judgments about what we can do to, once again, get the city the best product we can, given our budget constraints. We will have what's called a value engineering workshop, which is a focused 2-day exercise where we bring in experts who have no knowledge of the project that are peers from the outside, have them look at their design and give us feedback as to how we can perhaps skin the cat differently, get a better result, once again focusing on minimizing our costs. So that's our cost control process for the design phase. When it comes time to pick a bidder or pick a builder, our process is to maximize competition, give the city the benefit of having competition from the marketplace. Our goal was to get bids from anywhere from 3 to 5 competent, qualified bidders who have built an arena before, who have the right experience and expertise in this kind of project. Let the marketplace give us the best price we can going forward. Are there any questions about where we stand with the project?
First of all, thank you for your presentation tonight. I got 3 quick things. First, I was the one who was banging my shoe against the desk for the last 2 years against a different project, one that involved 2 ice rinks and 5 courts. My main concern then was operating costs. The main reason why I've been able to support this particular concept with the dual rinks is because of the high likelihood that the economies of scale will help us to take our existing operating losses at our current ice rink, which I believe are somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 a year, and bring those operating losses down I attended the stakeholders meeting where you guys gave a good presentation. I asked and was basically told that through economies of scale with improved refrigeration, improved technology, improved insulation, and the fact that we would not have to hire double the staff for this particular facility, that they felt very good that our potential operating losses could be brought down almost to zero. How confident do you feel about that?
Honestly, I've not focused much on the operating costs.
Okay.
Our charge is to look at construction and look at operating costs in terms of energy efficiency, cost to utilities, life cycle replacement costs for things that are wearing out. But we've not done a detailed study about in terms of revenue generation or expenses on the operating side.
I think it was the architect who felt good about that, so I'm going to follow up with him. Along the lines of costs, several folks asked me about potentiality of solar panels on the roof as a way of energy generation. Have you guys thought about that at all? Is that something you can consider?
Actually, yes. We've, as part of our value management process, we have identified about 15 alternatives right now we're studying that may be cost reductions or cost additions to the project, which we're analyzing as part of our next design iteration. We have a concept to add solar panels to the building. Right now, we're looking at that's an add to our budget. I don't have the exact figure in front of me. I want to say it's about $300,000. We're looking at what that's an increase in initial capital costs, but it'll have some operating savings on the back end. So we'll do a comprehensive life cycle analysis of that exercise.
Cool. It's a lot of roof space, as someone pointed out to me recently. So yeah, I'll be very excited to see if you guys take that into consideration. And the final question, a lot of residents have been asking me about the permeability of the pavement used for the parking. It looks like the parking in the plan, 250, seems fairly conservative to me.
Right.
But given the wetlands, given all the environmental considerations, what's being thought about with regards to permeability of parking?
Right now, our design has regular asphalt paving with 10-bar retention ponds scattered around the site, which will capture runoff off of the asphalt and manage that for both quantity and quality.
Okay.
What we're looking at right now is what one of our other design options is, in case we have an event that has more than 250 cars, we'll need to park on the grass. And our site is somewhat low-lying. It's got a high groundwater table. Many parts of the year, it'll probably be a bit difficult to park vehicles on grass. So we're looking at, can we do some sort of stabilized earth system that we can use as a overflow parking. So we're looking at it as a possible, once again, add to our project, but to give us some more features and some more availability.
Okay, that's all I have. I appreciate it. And if I can grab you afterwards to figure out who best to have the cost conversation with, I would really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Trout?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a question of staff. Staff, on slide 9 and 10, both of them referred to the size of the rink as an NHL size rink. Is that an error? Because that's not what the council voted on.
The typing is an error, but what are you referring to, Dr. Trout? That you all voted on a different size rink?
No. My impression was that the rationale for 2 ice rinks was that one be NHL and one be Olympic. Because if you remember, I was on board for the Olympic, and the Olympic is supposed to be larger than the NHL. So I was looking at trying to see if we could do the Olympic and have the capability of using the Olympic for figure skating, and also being able to use it for hockey since it was larger, that we could shrink it a little bit or put some sort of partitions around the side.
Hockey uses them both.
Say what?
Hockey does use them both.
Use both what?
Olympic size and regular NHL size.
Well, I was told before, no, we couldn't do that, because my whole question was, why don't we just do an Olympic-sized one?
I think Carrie can explain.
If I could address that, sir. I'm Carrie Robertson, I'm the facility manager. The original SFA study did recommend one NHL and one Olympic sheet. Most of the facilities that are being built these days are being built with just NHL. The difference is very nominal. It's 200 by 85 for NHL, 200 by 100 for Olympic. There's no need for our current programming or any future programming to have an Olympic sheet. Staff felt that it was a better use of the square footage to do NHL. It makes it easier to allocate the ice time. None of the 8U kids want to be on a larger sheet of ice. And the amount of figure skating that we do in the facility is perfectly fine for the NHL sheet.
Then why are we getting this presentation? Because my recollection is that's not what the council voted on. I certainly argued against it and made reference to the fact about the NHL and also the Olympic size. That they are different in sizes, and you're exactly right. That's what I was told, that the Olympic size was a little bit larger. So I guess my question is, why are we building 2 ice rinks that are identical when the motion didn't say that?
The only benefit at this point for an Olympic sheet would be you could possibly put a few more skaters on the ice for a public session, possibly for learn to skate classes, but the hockey teams are not going to change. You're not going to be able to put more hockey teams on the ice on an Olympic sheet versus an NHL sheet.
Well, I'm not arguing for the Olympics. Let me back up. I'm not arguing for the Olympic side. I was arguing for 1 sheet of ice and courts. That was my original preference. I mentioned the fact that in order to get the 1 court, to get the courts and the 1 sheet of ice, since the Olympic size ice is larger than the national hockey size rink, I was saying, well, why don't we go with the Olympic size one so that everybody could participate and use the Olympic size one, since it could be used for the figure skating competition and it also could be used for hockey. So that's what I was arguing for, but I was told that we could not do that. You could not use the hockey on the Olympic size ice rink. That's what I was told. But certainly, the council never voted for 2 Olympic for 2 NHL hockey teams. You can check the record on that, and I asked for the record to be pulled.
Well, there's no debate, sir. We'll go back and take a second look at it, and we'll orient the construction toward what you all approved. Simple as that.
But why are we building 2 ice rinks the same size? I mean, help me with that. Help me understand that.
Well, during the course of the staff evolution and talking with our manager and looking at the needs of the community, it seems apparent that a 2-rink national hockey standards would meet the needs of the body. And that's the update. If, however, we want to be in compliance with the directions, and if the council's inflexible in this area, then we'll go back and we'll make the adjustment and come back with a better.
All right, why don't we do that? Why don't you get something back for us as soon as you can?
Let me make this one point, man, because I want to get away from the confusion, because I'm totally confused here. One, the original let's go back to the feasibility study. The original feasibility study, of which I asked for, back around 2008, 2009. I'm the one that asked for it. We came back, we got the money, but the money was pushed back, not in the year that I asked for, but a year later. That was $50,000. The study came back. Well, the study came back with certain parameters, cost parameter, and also utility. The utility was, we need courts. That's what the study said. And the study said, okay, since we knew that the current facility is failing, and we didn't want to lose the amenity that particular rink brings to us as a community, because not all communities in Prince George County, or even in Montgomery County for that matter, or in the surrounding areas, have that as something that they can say is an amenity, an additional amenity, which puts the city above and beyond other cities in the area. So we wanted to protect that. So that's the reason why we wanted to make sure we took care of the ice part of it. But the study did say, feasibility study said we needed courts. It didn't say we needed 2 ice rinks. It said we needed courts. We made the decision to go with the 2 ice rinks based upon the need for Olympic and also NHL. Now, that's what was said. We can pull the records and look at it. So that's where I am on this. We never approved 2 NHL ice rinks. That was never on the table. We never voted on anything like that.
Okay. I have a quick question of you.
Quickly.
Councilmember Trout, my question is, you're saying courts and you're saying, could you differentiate, when you are saying courts, are you referring to ice arena or are you referring to something else?
No, I'm using the language that's in the study. And the study courts means basketball and also means volleyball.
Right.
Okay.
That's what courts means.
Correct.
In the study.
Okay, I just asked you to differentiate.
And also
for myself and for the public.
That's what it meant in the study. But also there's another area which is impacted with courts, and that is cheerleading.
Well, Councilmember Trout,
cheerleading. Yeah,
I agree with you on that. I do. Thank you.
Let's do this. We will get a review done on that. My quick record, and again, I'm kind of at the loss here, I'm not a hockey guy. I don't understand hockey.
Neither am I.
I went to a fight once and a hockey game broke out. But my recollection on this was we initially decided to do a single sheet, and the initial plan came in that said the single sheet would cost you $20 million, but for another $2 million we could put a second sheet. And that's when council decided that the cost benefit of that was that, because the original discussion was we had to move out of the existing facility because it was dying.
That's right.
And that with one sheet, we could replace the given capacity that we have now, but we would not add a minute to the capacity of the ice rink and the ice programs. At the last minute, when we got the extra, council did decide to put a second sheet there because of the cost benefit. We will be glad to look at what that discussion was and see if the discussion was 2 similar size or 1 and 1. I just don't remember right now. I'll be glad to look at that for you.
It was definitely not 2 of the same size. Trust me on that one.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm fine with looking at it. But what I'm saying is we'll get that report back, and we'll get a report back, we'll get a report back from staff, because I think what I'm hearing from staff recommendation is that the 2 same-size courts actually makes their job better and more effective, and it's easier to maintain and easier to operate. But we'll get that in, and we'll put it all back together, and we'll review this at another meeting. Is that okay for you?
It's okay that we do that, but I'm lost for a little bit of what you just said, because staff's recommendation came from the council, and the council voted on two sheets.
I understand.
But one was supposed to be, we never voted on 2 sheets at the same time.
We voted.
No, the same size.
I will get that. We will get that dated out. We'll review that for you. But we did intentionally vote for a second rink.
No, we did.
All right. We'll get that back for you.
But not the same size.
Okay. And we will. Do you have any other questions? Ms. Glass, and then Mr. Marcos.
I just want to go on the record as being in support of what Councilmember Trout said. I have heard, since we approved that, I have heard from many in my district that they would have preferred if we had done courts and an ice rink. So I'm just wondering, since we're still a semi-early stage, I guess, would there be a chance to, if we do 2 NHL courts, since it's smaller than the Olympic, well, if we do an Olympic rink, can we add in any courts, or have we completely passed by that phase of being able to add in any basketball courts that can also do volleyball and cheerleading?
Are you talking about a future expansion?
No, I'm talking about now. Because the communities that actually are connected to where this facility would be are communities that have expressed to me that they would prefer to have not just an ice rink, but an ice rink and basketball courts to fulfill their their interest.
Are you guys suggesting we go back and revisit this whole thing all over again? Because I'm not interested in doing that, quite frankly.
No, I'm not interested.
Because here we are, look, we went through this, we went through a series of public discussions. We recognize there's a need for more gym time and more, all of those things. All of that makes sense.
Right.
But the reality here was the ice rink was dying, and we had to fix the ice rink.
Right.
And we agreed initially to put one sheet of ice there. And the only reason we went to a second sheet was because at the presentation, it was so much more cost-effective to put a second sheet of ice next to it, so we could not only replace the existing thing, we could give them some expansion that they haven't had since 1970. Well, we recognize that there's an ongoing need for more gym time, and I think everybody has said that as this thing goes forward, there's still space there that we can come back and consider that. But where we advanced along on this time, we're now looking at a design for this project. And I'm not sure it's a practical debate to go back and revisit this whole thing all over again. Unless I'm missing something here.
Can I say something?
Quickly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say this and go on record for this. What the mayor is saying is completely correct. He is 100% correct. It is now as though what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, that everyone, and it seems to me that now everyone wants to make a change. I was fighting for basketball courts out of the gate. I did not get support. We voted on this with 2 sheets of ice. I voted against it. It went through. It is done. I mean, no disrespect. I really wish my colleagues supported us when we were fighting for basketball courts. When I was fighting for basketball courts for the residents of Bowie, in addition to 2 sheets of ice, the mayor is absolutely correct. We voted on this. We moved forward. And I lost. I didn't get to courts. That's what you live to fight another day. But I don't want to revisit it again. If I can get my courts, then by all means, I'll rip it apart and let's start all over again. But I'm not going to go through this exercise and I end up right where I am today, having fought without any basketball courts. So I asked previously for my colleagues to support me on the basketball courts. I got no support.
That's not correct.
No, that is correct.
Come on, hey guys, let's do this.
No, you did not, Councilmember Trout. No, you did not.
Come on, damn it.
Check the record.
No, you did not.
Check the record. Don't you know?
Hey,
so
would you behave a minute? Come on.
With that being said, the mayor is absolutely correct. We have gone through this exercise. We've taken our constituents through this exercise. We've spent money on an architect, on the design. It is done. That bird's out of the cage. So, I mean, if you want to go back and revisit it, I'll go back through the process, but I don't want to go back through it if I'm going to be right back where I am today without the basketball courts.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
The clerk has done some research while you were discussing things, and she's going to inform you specifically what was voted on that night. Please.
This was back at the September 18th council meeting. In the questions and answers to the presenters, Mr. Driscoll responded to Councilmember Palangan's question about what size this existing size of the ice sheet is and what was the size of the proposed rings. Mr. Driscoll responded that the existing one is 200 feet by 85, which is NHL size, and the proposed ones are 200 by 100 Olympic size and a 200 by 85 NHL size. And the end motion was by Councilmember Stev was made a motion to construct a 2-sheet ice rink at the Church Road location. Councilmember Marco seconded the motion and it passed 4-2 with Councilmember Gardner and Trouth against that proposed recommendation. But it was not, the motion did not specifically direct it to be one Olympic and one NHL size. It was recommended by Mr. Driscoll's that those would be the proposed ones, but the motion did not state exactly that those were the 2 that were going to be built.
Mr. Mayor, if I could jump in very briefly. So as the guy who made the motion, I had intended that one be NHL and one be Olympic sized. If the language of the proposal, if the language of my motion, however, was imprecise, then that's on me, right? And it would be up to, I guess, Ms. Levan to determine then what counts as what was made a motion for, what wasn't. I will say this, however, my bailiwick is just making sure that this thing brings our existing costs down. And if there is the demand and staff, and the folks working on this do in fact determine that the demand is such that this will be used much more so with 2 NHL-sized rinks than with 1 Olympic and 1 NHL, and that has the potential of bringing our overall operating losses down by raising revenue, I'm on board with that. That's the whole point of my supporting the 2 rinks, is to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck as far as reducing costs down the road. So that's just my 2 cents. From a process perspective, I agree with Dr. Trout. If legally our motion meant that we did in fact, we do have to in fact revisit this from a process point of view, I'm fine with that, but just explaining my position, on this whole thing. Anyway, thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Marcos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not sure if it pays to be patient or not. Thank you for being here tonight, and I also thank staff for everything that you've done. Being one of the few guys up here, or persons up here, that probably does understand hockey from following it for so long, and my son playing and my family playing, I understand there's not really that big of an issue going with 2 NHLs as opposed to an Olympic and 1 NHL. So I'm fine with that. I understand where we're going with that. I did have a couple questions on the impact of how much trouble we're facing with the wetland issue. And the other is, I was just curious, the walls that we're putting up, are they going to be bricked in, or is that corrugated metal? What's the actual material that will be on the outside of the walls?
Cal, answer your questions in order, sir. The first one about the impact of the wetlands. You'll see the blue.
Yes, that's what
colored
kind of
field,
made me question it.
just north of the parking area. Those are wetlands that are under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We can't build in the wetlands. So that's, the fact we had to start the wetlands kind of dictated how we laid out, or how the architect laid out the entry drive and the parking. So we've had to have a bit of a standoff back from those boundaries. What that did was it made our paved area larger than it would have been otherwise.
Okay.
So there was some cost impact because we had to avoid the wetlands. To answer your question about the building skin, we're going to have a pre-engineered metal building that has insulated metal panels on the exterior. So it's not brick. Where's a good image? Yeah, those what you see on the elevations there is an insulated metal panel. So it's metal on the outside with a sandwich with insulation on the inside.
I'm fine with that. I think it'll definitely help us keep the costs down. I guess the last question I have is, when can we skate?
Our plan right now is to go to bidding in the spring of next year, with the goal of having a contractor on board by late April, early May. We have 18 months program for construction. So to answer your question, we should be skating November, Christmas time, 2020.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Gordon Glass.
Thank you. So I wanted, since with the concerns around the wetlands and such, can you explain to me more in depth about the stormwater management?
Okay, it's not shown on, our site plans are not that detailed yet. But we have a lot of impervious area. That's all asphalt, blacktop pavement. And by code, we have to manage the water that runs off of that, to manage quantity in terms of volume of the water, and also to make sure that we store it and retain it to improve water quality. So it's quality and quantity. So what we're going to have is is some of the islands, some of the green islands inside the paved area, as well as to the east of parking lot number 2, we're going to have a series of what's called they're called bioretention basins. They're, for lack of a better term, big pits that are filled with stone and mulch and plantings that water will run into that, will stay there for a period of time. So all the pollution or pollutants will drain out of it. When the water reaches a certain level, the water will flow out of a pipe down to this big pond at the very east end of the site. That's where we drain to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to publicly say to my council colleague and friend Ike Trout, I simply apologize if I offended you. I stand to be corrected. Okay? You got it, Mr. Trout. Thank you for accepting the apology.
Mr. Mayor, what we'll do is, when we go back to our drawing boards, I understand the spirit of the vote was to have one of each. And so we'll go back, and that'll be our direction. And we'll proceed with that, as long as nobody has any objections.
I do have an objection. I apologize, Mr. Mayor, if I could follow. I do want to make sure that whatever we do, in fact, build, maximizes both, the supply for the demand that exists out there based on what staff and the builders think, and also ensures that we can maximize our return on investment. So if staff and the builder decide actually 2 NHL sized is going to be better than 1 NHL size, 1 Olympic size as far as meeting regional demand, then I'm all on board with that. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Well, I mean, the idea of it all is to get as close to an enterprise fund as we can with these two ice rinks. And so in order to do that, an enterprise fund is a fund that pays for itself, right? And so we want to have as many people coming and using it as possible with the fewest amount of people. So we're going to use our original team, transfer them there, and right now, the evidence indicates from our discussions that 2 NHL rinks would be the most profitable. However, since I used to be a soldier, I mean, whatever the mission is, we'll do it. If the council wants one of each, then that's what we'll do. But the best potential for an enterprise fund is to have 2 National Hockey League rinks.
I apologize, Mr. City Manager. Ms. Levan, I saw you making motions and gestures, so I got the sense you wanted to enlighten us on where we were as far as the vote and legally and all that.
Thank you, Councilman. I don't actually want to.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
But I feel that you've asked me for that. So let me say that the consultant's understanding of your motion was not unreasonable because the motion didn't specify.
Right.
And there was obviously some disagreement or some difference of understanding on the council about whether it was intended to give that specificity. And the best way to resolve that is to give a specific instruction to staff and to your consultants at this time or at a subsequent meeting when staff can bring you back additional information about costs with respect to the change in design. And that will clarify the record for
that seems like the most straightforward possible solution. Thank you. That being the case, I would like to make a motion right now that we give staff and the designer the flexibility to make a decision that will bring this closer to being cost efficient. And if that means 2 NHL size, then that means 2 NHL size.
I don't know that we do that with a motion. We do that with a consensus to direct staff to do something, correct? What's the legal option here?
It would be best at this point to make a motion to give staff direction so that you don't repeat.
So my motion is simply to allow staff and to make its recommendation for the size of the rinks based on what will maximize our return on investment and reduce our operating losses.
Second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. Mr. Gardner?
Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening. I'd like to move to closed session. for statutory general provisions, Article 3-303, B7, to consult with counsel to obtain legal advice on a legal matter, and 3-305B8, to consult with staff, consultants, and/or other individuals about a pending or potential litigation.
Second? Mr. Martin, any question on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.